Hey everybody, we're going to start the Parade of Carts now. Everybody having a good time so far? Yeah, okay, so we're going to do the Parade of Carts for a little bit, and then again, we'll open it up to some Q&A where you can ask the individual people stuff, and then we're going to have lunch and hang out for a little while and have some good food and some good times. So again, for anyone that arrived late, my name's Tim Muirhead. I'll be the moderator for this, and let's start over here. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, you need a microphone. Where's the other microphone? Over here, I guess? Yeah. You can get it yourself.
Say we're used to microphones.
So this is Ryan Peterson, and you brought a playback cart for us today, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I brought two.
There you go.
So I brought my main playback cart. Should I do to him or to them?
Both.
Both. Hello. So this is my main playback cart, and then I have a portable version of a Pro Tools cart as well. It's all based around Pro Tools Ultimate and Dante, so it's all digital SSL control surface. Still rocking the 2009 Mac Pro. It's never gonna die. Yep. Custom built cart by me. It's got a UPS backup, so I can lose power for a short amount of time. If I needed something that would run off battery power, I would go over to my portable version, which is built in this case, and it can run completely on a battery. Full Pro Tools cart as well.
So you've got the full-up Mac tower here. What are you running over here?
That has a Mac Mini in it that I converted to 12 volts.
So everything's in that case right there?
Everything is in that case, yep.
And what kind of battery are you running off of?
Well, it's just like an external battery you can plug into it. I don't have it on there right now, but like you can actually just plug a battery in, and then I just use like the PSC Life batteries.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
So what was the last project that you were using this playback cart on, and how were you using it?
2 days ago, I did a Union commercial. But before that, like the last large long-term project I did, obviously musicals are my bread and butter. But I do a lot of day playing on TV shows, movies. But like High School Musical, the series was the last long-term thing that I did, and that ended last December. And we did that for four years. And that was probably the most involved show that I've done with playback, because we had everything from live singing and earwigs to big, huge musical numbers. Big, huge musical numbers. So it was heavily utilized for that. And I even was recording tracks as well, and then editing them together into a comp take and playing that back for like shooting that live.
So how many tracks wide are you working with here? Do you have the stems and everything like that, or?
Yeah, so on that, most stuff I'm just getting like a stereo mix. Sometimes it'll be an instrumental and a vocal broken out if we're going to be doing live singing. On High School Musical, because it's so involved, I had a mixed stem, an instrumental stem, and then I had the instrumentals broken down as well. So drums, keys, bass, strings, kind of depending on the song. And then we had multiple versions of vocals. So we had, because obviously they were recording soundtrack for that, and so they were using like we called it the face mic, whatever mic they were using. But and then we also had them recording a boom microphone, and so to try to match that to what we were recording on set, and also to make it feel real and not like it was just a soundtrack version. And so I had broken out stems for each actor of both microphones plus effects tracks for each actor, and then if there was like background vocals, I'd have those separately, and sometimes there'd be like 3 or 4 versions of that. So like I had anywhere from like 6 stereo tracks up to like 70 tracks. So depending on how many, because like sometimes we had like 20 people singing, and that's ×2 or ×3 plus all the instrumentals. So they got pretty big.
So while you're doing the playback, how much interaction do you have with the production mixer at that stage?
I have a lot of interaction. So I'm always sending a mix to the production mixer for reference. And usually we had a time code reference going to the mixer as well, just an audio time code that was separate from the time of day time code for camera sync. And so they got those, and then obviously working in depth with them for queuing and for if we need earwigs. I usually handled all that. But it was basically just a member of the sound team day to day. And then I had a lot more interaction with post than most production mixers would. I was involved in the early recording process to make sure that we were getting the tracks that we needed for on set. And then obviously working with the music team closely to make sure that we had the correct versions. And even on set, the showrunner sometimes would be like, "Hey, we want to start this song differently, so like let's start it a cappella. So where can we find a spot to come in with the piano track or whatever?" Like so, I had to edit stuff right there
On the fly, yeah.
on the fly. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the gear. What's your mixing board here? What are the faders?
Yeah, so this is a control surface. A couple of years ago, I went to all in the box, so I can do all my routing just within Pro Tools. It's a lot more flexible that way. So an SSL UF8. Everything on this cart either runs on 12 volts or AC. So I went with this instead of like the Yukon stuff, just because the SSL is made out of metal, and I felt like it was built well for set use. And they have a really cool Huey protocol that they use like with their own app, so you can actually like program soft keys and all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. It's probably the most in-depth Huey controller that's available for Pro Tools without going to like to an Avid controller.
And then you've got the RedNet up here.
Yeah, so when I switched over to all in the box, and since my cart is fully digital on Dante, I thought, well, on my cart, how am I going to listen back to anything either through headphones or speakers? So I got the little RedNet X2P. That runs on PoE or 12 volts as well. It's got 2 mic pre-ins too as well, so I have always 2 inputs available for myself on set. So if I need to take a feed from the mixer or whatever, I have that. And that feeds my headphones and my speakers. And then down underneath here, so Mac Pro, and then just power stuff, and then the Focusrite. So all my stuff, I'm using all the Focusrite stuff, the RedNet. This is basically a Pro Tools bridge to Dante, and then I have the Avid Sync, and then switches and some more Dante to analog conversion stuff as well. And then on the very, very bottom is the UPS kind of tucked in under there.
Oh yeah, there it is.
So,
Oh, cute.
and that'll run about 15 minutes, I think.
So let's talk about Dante for a second. Like,
Yeah.
how long have you been running Dante, and how daunting was it to go to Dante?
I've been using Dante for a very long time, probably 15, 18 years,
Wow, okay.
maybe even since it came out, which I can't
yeah.
remember how long ago that was. I have never had Dante fail because everybody's like, oh, scared to go to Dante. I've never had it fail. I don't I do not run it in redundant mode. It's been rock solid. I've worked really, really hard to make sure that it is. So using good switches, and this cart has a full PoE switch too. So like, instead of running analog lines from my cart out to speakers or whatever, I just run a Cat5 line out, so just one line, and I can set these boxes by my speakers, and I can do inputs, outputs on them, and I have a variety of different boxes based on what I need for inputs and outputs. And so it all just runs on Cat5, which is way cheaper than analog.
And what's the name of that box?
That is made by Glen Sound. They're out of the UK, and I have another 8 in, 8 out Glen Sound box there as well. They've been really, really great. They're all metal construction, so they're built for the rugged, extreme environments of set. So.
Let's show the people. Flip this up, and let's see underneath here. This is pretty cool.
So move the mouse. It's a little messy under here, but
So this is your battery-powered playback.
yeah. So
setup here.
I use this if I can't bring my main card in, or like I used it in
right
a
in
process
on here.
trailer on season 3. Basically stuck this in a process trailer and ran the whole day on this system. It's still a Pro Tools HD system, but I'm using the Mo2 interface. It has fans in it. It's got a 12-volt distro inside, a lot of cables, and a little switch, and then the fans to keep it nice and cool.
So you obviously built this yourself.
I built this myself.
What was the trial and error here? Like, how long did it take you to settle in on this setup?
It took me a while. The Mac Mini was originally going to go on my main cart, but I had too many issues with Thunderbolt with the Sonnet chassis, and so it became a scary transition to go to 12 volts with it. I did that myself and said, okay, if I blow it up, then that's $1,000 gone. But it took me a little while to build this, to figure out what I wanted in it, trying to find an interface that was 12 volt or USB powered that had a lot of outputs on it, because this one will have 10 outputs, so I can still do high output counts. Yeah.
Who did you lean on for advice? Like, how did you tackle this?
Well, I was kind of inspired by like video assist operators.
Okay.
So there's a couple of video assist operators that have a Pelican style case that they roll up and they fold it open and they work with it. And so I kind of took that and was like, well, I can make a audio playback version of that. And so I just did it.
And how long have you been rolling with this?
I've had this for 2 years.
And it's been solid for you?
Yeah, it hasn't broken yet.
And what do you run in the monitor? What's the monitor there?
It's just a little USB powered monitor. I have like a matte thing over it so it doesn't do touchscreen anymore. But that was one of the goals was I didn't want to have an AC powered monitor because that obviously defeats the whole point of the cart.
Yeah.
So I was able to find just a USB powered monitor. And I can set this on like a larger cart too. Like it's got an HDMI output, so if I wanted to use a larger screen on a cart, I can do that. So.
Oh, you thought of everything. That's really cool. And you built this cart.
I built this cart. This is like version 4 of this cart. But what's cool about this cart is if I just break a few connections in the back, I can actually take each of these sections off individually and pack it up pretty small. They just pull out with a few pins on the side, just over here on the side. They just pull out and then the whole unit comes off.
And you also do production mixing as well,
I also do
right?
production
So what's
mixing.
your percentage between the two?
Probably 90% playback. 10%,
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
There's a lot of playback needs, so most mixers don't want to deal with it. There's usually a lot of communication with the post team that they're already busy enough on set dealing with all their stuff, and there's also a lot of specialty needs that come along with playback. So, and this is just obviously I'll bring speakers and stands and all that kind of stuff.
So this cart that you made, what are your hacks that you put on this that separate from other carts?
It's an 80/20 cart, so you can there's a lot of guys that are using 80/20 to build stuff. I had to build some custom brackets for the bottom to hold my UPS. There wasn't any room farther up for it, so it ended up down at the bottom. It's very heavy. It doesn't go upstairs very well. And the most recent ad was the little flip-up shelf on the side. So that just flips down. So that I can go through doorways.
There you go.
And then the monitors fold up and can come off real quick.
So when you're running playback, are you setting up with the production sound mixer, or are you in a different space?
Yeah, I typically am very, very close to them. Sometimes I'll come in early for rehearsals, and like on this commercial, like I was there for a full day with nobody other than me, and well, there was no production sound team that day. So it's just me rehearsing with them, and then they come in and we, integrate our carts together so I can send them a feed.
So tell me, what was your biggest save the day moment with this setup? Was there ever a moment where someone asked for something that you thought wasn't going to be possible and then you end up pulling it off?
They wanted me to tune a vocal on High School Musical because the music team didn't send the right notes to the composer.
Oh, boy.
And so they came in and the vocal just needed to be slightly tuned. It wasn't terrible. It was just there's like one little spot. And I was like, oh, I can do that. Don't worry.
Awesome.
So.
Save the day right there. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Well, so if anybody has any questions, we'll come back in a bit. Now let's move on to our next one. This is Eric Potter.
Ahoy!
Hello, Eric.
Welcome aboard.
So you're mostly sound effects recordist, is that correct?
Yeah, sound effects, elements for sound designers, elements for composers, remote recording, remote ADR, exterior loop group stuff,
cool.
crowds, and sometimes I'll go on production if there's 600 extras rioting in the streets and do a whole surround kind of setup on those things. Pretty much everything that isn't production dialogue. Music, remote music, a choir in a cave, whatever is not in a studio or not in production dialogue.
Okay, we're going to get back to a choir in a cave. I want to know more about
Okay.
that. But let's kind of go through the stuff on your table here.
Yeah, most recently, as far as recorders go, I've been enjoying this Sound Devices MixPre 10. It's the 32-bit float version, which is pretty neat for sound effects when things are dynamic, super dynamic. It's kind of easier to deal with, and when you have surprises, explosions, or or animals that, you know, the dog is being quiet and then it's being loud. It's pretty good for a lot of things in sound design. The other things I use, which are set up in my workshop right now, are the older 788 sound devices, units. I have a few of those that can do like 24-track onboard vehicles and a different flavor of mic preamp tone. You know, these are super clear, very quiet, wonderful for ambiances, atmospheres. I take this on literally on safari, you know, to record in Africa, remote ambiances with lush surround sound setups. And then the older gear, still mostly sound devices that have like transformers on the input, like the 302 mixer and the 442 mixer. That stuff's at home. It's all set up for a thing I'm doing this weekend. But so you do get different flavors even in the field equipment of the preamp design particularly. But this is a nice, it's a real bargain. You know, you get a lot of incredible quality and workability. It's not quite as flexible as the Pro, you know, they're higher,
Like the Scorpio. Or
full
something
Pro
like that.
Scorpio.
Yeah.
Scorpio's overkill for me, actually, because I don't do production and I don't need to integrate so many elements as they offer. So that's a wonderful all-around recorder. You know?
And you're always out of a bag, correct?
Very often. Sometimes I will set up on a table like this, you know, if it's something staged at a location. But a lot of times that's the bag. It's on my shoulder. The bag itself is fairly new, a K-Tech Stingray, and it's really the first bag. You remember Portabrace, you know, would have stuff for the Nagra and the other recorders. And I was never, you know, most of the time I would just put the stuff in a big camera bag so that I could configure it on the fly as much as I want. But this is actually the first bag that was intended for portable field recording that I'd taken to. And it's neat. It's lightweight and it's very sturdy. There's even room to stash my headphones in this section here. Although sometimes I'll put an outboard preamp in here that have the timer elements to them, yeah. And so, yeah, it's very much over the shoulder, run and gun, and maybe something in hand like this. This is Shep's CCM capsules, and
Sorry, I'm just going to stop you for 1 sec. If everybody wants to come down here, you can
Oh,
see
yeah,
what he's
you can
actually talking
yeah,
about.
fill
you
in
don't
this
have to
area.
You don't have to be so far away.
yeah, it's working out for the camera, but we can have our live audience have a closer look. And then afterwards, you're totally welcome to come and really poke at it. So inside here, it's I'm really pushing the limits of portability and flexibility here. This is a dual MS Shep's CCM capsule. So you may be familiar with MS, where you have a one channel mid pointing forward, which is great when you have a subject, you know, a car throttling by and you really want the center to be accurate. And then the side is the figure 8, where you can dial in the stereo aspect in editorial or mixing. So you don't have to commit to your sound field.
To the width.
Yeah, the width of the field. So that's on a
But
separate
that's
channel.
double MS.
This
And
is
that's
double
small.
MS, so it has a rear mid.
Wow, that's
And
tiny.
yes, this small, I used to have, the previous Rycote was a bit larger, and it was really good for that. This, I'm kind of pushing the limits of, you know, it's a little tight in there, but this is what they're currently offering, which I love because the whole thing is like this. It's pretty darn small, and you can derive a full surround, having the mid, rear in the back, and then also combining the sides and the mid front, you can create a whole thing. And it's very, very handy way to go about it. And it's only 3 channels. You know, if you have the
in your recorder.
Yeah, if you had a 4-channel recorder, you can get surround. You can get a full surround if you learn how to expand the image with the figure 8s. And so, and this is like, I don't necessarily recommend everybody do this, but I've done this. I don't hand this off to a boom op or someone else to run with, because it's a little tight, and it actually will bump because it's so close.
Bump the outside of the shield.
Yeah, like there's not a lot of space in there since I crammed in. When I have to really run and gun, I'll pull the rear mid out of there, and then it's the proper amount of space. But since I've set it up for myself, I can run around, and I'll know that I have to be a little careful, what I'm doing. But a lot of times, if I'm really doing the full dual MS, I've got it on a stand. It's an ambient thing, and I'm not chasing. But I can chase with it. And so that's a very, very often used. Another component to go along with that is inside here, you can see on the top of this windshield, under this cover, these are lines. This is like an ORTF CCM pair. And so that's kind of a more normal stereo, where you have your left and right with a certain kind of spread. And I can also, for a more elaborate surround where I have time to plan out, I might position this MS facing forward, and these ORTFs spread out facing rearward, and maybe even, depending on the environment, maybe stretch out a distance between them to just create a broader front to rear image, something.
So what would you be recording when you're doing that kind of setup?
It could be things that are happening in an environment. If we're doing a gun session, I might go downrange with this and have this in a position where you're hearing the distant fire from there, and then you're hearing reflections behind you. I've done rainstorms, thunderstorms. Thunders come out really nice with this setup. You don't know quite where thunder will strike, but if you put yourself in an interesting canyon, when it does, it's going to be cool. And crowd stuff, people panicking in the streets during production. The production recorders are free to focus on the dialogue and the camera action, and I'll be somewhere out of sight with this set up, hopefully, if I have room. Or once they're done with their take, I may grab and they move on to the next shot or next location. If they can give me the background actors, 600 people, let's do another riot. Let's do it for sound, and I'll set these up on stands. And it's fun. I kind of get to direct the crowd too. They're like, come on, riot, and they really get to act. But you got to be careful, not, because they'll really ham it up too. So you got to not be too inspiring.
So you've got a bunch of specialty mics here. It looks like you got a contact, a hydrophone. Do you want to talk about
so
when you use those?
A lot of the sound effects might be objects and things, recently someone asked for a haunted refrigerator.
Of course.
Yeah, and I was delighted. I'm like, I've never done that. Like, I think I know what to do, and I found some junk refrigerators. I went to, here in Burbank, the appliance repair guy, and he had extra broken compressors and tubing. And in my workshop, I put together a series of refrigerators, janky, not suitable for keeping food in, but the sound, and putting it on a variac and turning down the voltage and making it struggle and moan and hiss and groan, and the steel, aluminum shelving would rattle, and it started speaking and singing. And so I might put some of these mics, I put some of these mics around it, but the contact mics are really neat like that. You put them on the object, and you don't know, there's no point in thinking ahead of strategy, it's just experimenting. Stick it on here, oh, what's that? Great, who knew that this would be the sweet spot? And so this is kind of like a puck design that's pretty
What is that? A Cortado?
well-rounded. Yeah, that's the Cortado from Zeppelin. It has its own little impedance
Preamp
box
there, yeah.
and a little, power supply. This is one from Barkus Berry. I think it was intended for piano, acoustic piano, and it's really rich, hi-fi. It's surprising for a contact. It's a little more reality kind of sound, but it's still in your
Focused.
face.
Yeah.
And I've got pretty much, every contact mic sounds radically different from the other. It's fun to have. I have a bunch more. It's homemade ones. My friend Charlie Campagna made some. He read an article, and he gave me one of his contact mics, and surprisingly robust.
And then what's
That's
that
great.
DPA over there? Is that a DPA?
Yeah, this is a DPA. It's actually a B&K. Before there
okay.
was DPA, there was B&K. 4007. It is an Omni microphone that can take a really hot input, acoustic sound, loud. So explosions, gunshots. I put this on hot rod car exhausts. Anything that would crap out another mic, there's a fighting chance that this mic can handle it. And it comes in this, I can put it up in the Zeppelin just like the others. So I just kind of have it out on display. These mics these are Omni also, very modern and sensitive. The 4007 has a bit of an extended range too, which is nice, for some pitch dropping where it'll retain the high end. Yeah. These are Sennheiser. I have Sennheiser 8020 Omnis and 8040 cardioids that I can put into these Sonella suspensions. And I think this is just the coolest suspension. The microphone goes directly into this mount. I'm not going to monkey with it right now, but it plugs right into this mount. Wire comes out the back. This has a rubber insulation. So this right here is really quiet and not much mechanical thing. But then you put it in here, which has further suspension, and I love this. I can put this on something that moves with a quiet background, and it won't rumble or vibrate. This is like the best mechanical isolation of a microphone I've experienced yet. And I love my mic stands. I have traditional mic stands, but recently I raided my sheet music stands from my studio, and these are actually portable sheet music stands, but they're so lightweight, it's like, hey, let's go record, come on. Another one here. I'll use these for extended surround too. These are a matched pair of Omni 8020s, also with extended range, much more sensitive than the DPA and the Neumann over there. But I'll spread these guys out real wide. So with these stands and these lightweight suspension and these clamps, I'm obsessed with clamps and, this kind of joint. These are, I get these at the gaffer shops, I don't know if they intended them for microphones, but they set
work.
them up to do, they're wonderful. And I can put those in the backpack and hike into a location much more easily than we used to be able to.
For sure. So let's talk about a session. Let's say you're hired to record a sports car.
Sure.
Can you talk about how you're going to mic those up?
Yeah, it is differing situations. Ford versus Ferrari. The hardest part was finding the right Ferrari. And once Don Sylvester found the Ferrari,
He was the supervising sound editor on that film, yeah.
Yeah, he found one in Atlanta. He went back home to visit with some family, and he saw this 1961 Ferrari Testarossa throttling down the boulevard, and he actually kind of hunted the guy down, and he was up for it. So we met up in Florida, and he knew of a location. That's important.
Yeah.
Where can you actually run these cars, do the maneuvers that you need without hurting anybody or getting thrown in jail? So these things are great. Also, they're lightweight enough. You can attach them, and they're pretty darn good in the wind. So I've been able to use these to an extent, not at super high
On the exterior
speeds.
of the car?
Sometimes, yeah, on the rear areas, or that's an open cockpit car, so I can put mics just behind the windshield and get an overall tone. Inside the car, I might put this. This is a surround mic. This is 5 channels to surround DPA 5100. And it has, it's hard to do things with a microphone in your hand, but here. This is very robust and handy. It's left, center, right, and then a split surround in the back. And at one cable, that breaks out to a 5.1 even. It even sums a low frequency channel as well. So I might stick this in the interior of a car. And then once you've got that sort of broad, tasty setup, I get micro, lavaliers around the engine.
Under the hood,
With
yeah.
they have these nice thin, under the hood and in different corners. It's a process of elimination. That alternator kind of sounds like a sewing machine. Let's stay away from that and go to the other corner where, there's an exhaust tone coming off the header there. You got to stick these mics in and listen and change and move. And it takes like an hour, to find the spot that's going to work. And then you add a couple more just in case, because things get hot. I've burned up these cables. These are like $600 mics, and
What is it?
it's a DPA
4060, 4061?
Yeah, from the 4060 series, the 61 to 62s, depending on the sound pressure.
Yeah, the higher the number, the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 62s would take a lot of level, but then when you're cruising, it's not so full range feeling, and it can actually get a little noisy. So I might put a 4060 in there as well for the lower speed aspects of that. Cool. And then, maybe a 4007 by the exhaust, bundled up,
And then some static points for pass-bys and stuff
right,
like that?
and then, so that, now the car's all wired up, and it's sounding good, and I'll send them out with a briefing on what maneuvers we need to do, and then I'll be out standing alongside with this. I love this. This is the Neumann MS, the 190, the original. This is almost a vintage microphone now. This is like a 70s, 80s production, but just one of the richest. It's the Neumann deep tone. The Sheps I would use as well for some pass-bys and things, but it's brighter, crisper, more detailed. So if I was recording like a new BMW, we had kind of a refined sound, or maybe an electric car that sounds kind of modern, I might use the Sheps, on the pass-bys. But when you want a fat, beefy, throttly, hot rod sports car thing, I'll most likely use the Neumann. and it also bundles up in with the Zeppelin and all that. And there's quite a bit of handling noise. It's not a It's old. It's not. It hasn't been refined to where some other mics are very.
It's heavy too,
easy.
right?
It's heavy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I only recently started noticing. Other people say, "Yeah, it's heavy. It's heavy." And finally, I'm getting old enough to where I notice. I think like, "Oh yeah, I gotta hold this up the whole time." I actually like when I'm shooting. I actually like.
Upside down.
Yeah, I feel more comfortable and I can be more precise and less vibration from my movement if I do it this way.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Boom, boom, boom. And so, yeah, close up, medium shot. I'll have a real portable recorder like a Zoom F3 or something. That's not here, but I'll have it on a stand with its own, maybe this MS mic, maybe 20 feet back, so I can get all these medium shot.
And just let that
perspectives.
roll on its own.
Yeah. While I'm focusing on the close-up, speedy pass by with the driver, and so there's always that perspective. And then hopefully there's another recordist. John Fasal and I will often team up to get on Ford versus Ferrari. It was John and I and Jay Wilkinson. Just because it's important to be well covered, and so that's the basic approach,
Well,
coaching the driver.
Yeah, the driver.
And establishing trust and communication and casting the car and the driver as well. Sometimes if it's a production vehicle, that car that they actually had in the production is actually cool, and they'll send it out, maybe with a random teamster who thinks that he's just going to be sitting in his truck, but he ends up being the driver, and like sometimes they really come through. And sometimes, man, you ought to be a stunt driver. Car prep guys, if
tweaking the
there's
engine and such like that, you mean?
or just driving. Like the car prep guys, if it's a commercial and it's a new car, and they come, they know they are car people, so they know how to extract an exciting sound out of the normal car. Kia commercial. That same week we did Ford versus Ferrari in Florida, I drove over to Alabama to record a Kia for a car commercial, and it was not an exciting car. But I used a similar technique, and I got in close to the engine and the exhaust, and it actually made it sound kind of exciting. And thankfully, the car prep guy also made it sound exciting because he wasn't a random person. He was actually a car person. Yeah. So that's important in getting the right kind of action, personality, character.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah.
Eric. This was awesome. Just before we move on to Greg, I just want to tell you a story that's very complimentary to you. I didn't know that you recorded for Ford vs. Ferrari.
Okay.
I was lucky enough, I saw the premiere of the film. I live in Toronto. It premiered at TIFF.
Oh, neato.
And I'm sitting in this huge theater, and there's a scene where Matt Damon's character takes Ford into one of the cars and drives him around.
Yeah.
The random woman who was sitting beside me, maybe in her late 50s, had a full-on panic attack during that scene.
Uh-huh.
And but we didn't know what was going on. She was just like, she couldn't breathe. She was panicking.
Yeah.
And we were ready to call like emergency people, and then she started calming down and getting her breath. And I didn't even get to watch the scene because
yeah.
I was like, all the
Concerned.
people in our couple rows were trying to figure
wow.
out if this woman was having major
seizure.
medical.
Yeah.
But then when she calmed down and we asked her if she was okay, she said specifically, the sound was too much. I couldn't handle the sound. So it wasn't the visuals that sent her into the panic attack.
Wow,
It was the
even-
powerful, super powerful recordings that you
Wasn't
made.
Matt Damon? It was, no.
Matt who? It was Eric Potter. That's who it was.
Actually, I'll say that was John Fasal.
Okay.
Who I learned so much from along the way, and we've recorded together for decades. John Fasal, I just joined his adventure of vehicle recording over the decades, and he did the Ford GT, specifically over and over again to get it right. So
Well, it worked.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Okay, if everybody wants to kind of swing around over here, Greg, this is Greg Sestro. Hey.
Thank you, Eric.
So, Greg, do you want to tell us about your gear? Let's start over here. What do we got here?
Sure. Well, I've been. Where do I start? This card has gone through a lot of different transformations over the years. Originally, it was about yay tall and literally was just a place for me to set my bag rig down. And then it graduated into a place where I could have my bag and a control surface and that sort of a deal. And then I got to the point where I was ready to actually really use a real mixer, as I like to say. Although, there's different workflows, different ways everyone likes to do their thing. I'm definitely not knocking using a control surface. I think they're very powerful and they do a ton of stuff. Myself personally, I splurged and bought a Sonus X mixer, and I've been using it now for 6 or 7 years, I guess. And I am trying as much as I can to continue to use it because I just truly love working on it. It is an analog mixer, and it does have a digital output for all my direct outs and everything from my ISO tracks, which goes to my recorder. But I just like having everything here. EQ, limiters, just everything is at my fingertips. And I find more and more these days, I'll reach to, if I have to blend microphone sources and stuff like that, I just find I can do what I want to do and make it sound like I want to sound with this machine, which I really appreciate. And then I've been running Zaxcom recorders for a number of years now. And so at one point, I think I might have owned 4 Nomad machines, which I dialed back to. I now have a backup for it because I'm always want to have a backup. And the most recent addition to this card is the Zaxcom wireless system, which is digital wireless. I actually do run analog out into my mixer, which seems a little strange maybe, but again, there's so much I can do with this mixing board that for me, it works really well. And honestly, it just, again, the jump to digital wireless for me wasn't necessary. I previously was using Electrosonics hybrid system, digital hybrid system. But because Zaxcom has this ecosystem where everything talks to everything, it's incredibly powerful for me. I can remote, turn on, turn off, refreak, change levels on all the transmitters just from here. I don't have to go up, or my crew doesn't have to go up to anybody to change any aspect other than swapping the battery or moving a mic if we need to make a mic adjustment. So I kind of feel like I have the best of the both worlds as far as that kind of stuff is concerned. When I first built this cart, it was after having built another one that was huge. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to use this thing, or I'm never going to be able to transport it myself if I ever had to, right? And so I just picked some dimensions, and I ended up with this format, which is 15 inches wide and 18 inches deep. And if I was smart, I would have at least made it rack width deep so I could mount some of that stuff on it. And so, but I've adapted, and it's been fine. Let's see, what else? The wood drawers are something my dad made for me. Because again, I ended up with these dimensions, and I'm like, I'm not going to find any, store-bought set of drawers, right? So, and I like it. It adds a little bling factor maybe, but let's see. I also have on here a Metric Halo interface that I use for playback work. And believe it or not, I just plug the outputs into my mixer, and I have a overly complicated mixing device for playback work, but it still comes in handy. The routing is very flexible, and if I need to do some EQ or especially if I'm feeding an earwig, I will often listen to the music myself and make some adjustments to the sound, some frequencies and stuff like that to make it as pleasant sounding as possible for the people who are using these little earwigs, which are not always the best sounding. Yeah. Now, the new Rogers I haven't used them and I'm interested in them, the new digital version. I still use the Phonak Invisity earwigs, and they have great range and they're nice. Let's see. A couple of other things I have on here. I do have this little MixPre 3, which in my previous build of the cart was my always recording recorder. I turn it on at the beginning of the day. It just has my mix track, but believe me, it has saved me when something happens and it's like, well, I got the backup. With Zaxcom, all the body pack transmitters have built-in recording. timecode stamped. So honestly, I don't record it. I don't use this for recording anymore. I use this purely as a volume control for my send for my Comtech feed. So if I ever need to just kill it, I just turn it down. And as well, instead of eating up a channel on my system, if I have to there are times when you do a loop through with video, so that if they're playing back, people can hear it on the Comtex. So I just bring that in on another channel on the recorder. And then I do also have one channel of the noise reduction plugin that you can get on the recorder, and I have that here as well. I haven't really used it that much, but I have it at my disposal that I just use the other fader, and now I have a noise reduced feed that I can send out over the Comtex.
So the laptop's for playback?
Laptop is for playback. Honestly, most of the time, I do not have a laptop on it, and I like to call it my snack tray, as I just put my snacks on there. But yeah, it's for playback. I mean, I don't necessarily have the crazy beefy system that Ryan uses, but it does pretty much everything I need it to do. I mean, this is definitely also an older version of Pro Tools that, at least for me, is rock solid. And
Yes.
The last thing you want on set is Pro Tools crashing on you while you're in the middle of something, and everyone in turns and looks at you because, you know, it stopped playing back, right? But the Metric Halo is really a great interface and is proven to, you know, really be rock solid, which is nice.
And then you got a bag over here?
Yeah, over here, I had this in my car and I thought I might as well bring it. I have this is actually pretty new as well. This is the Nova, the Zaxcom Nova, which is a great machine, and it also has integrated wireless receivers. And when you pick it up, oh yeah, there you go. It's also very compact and light, which is great if you're doing a lot of bag work. Most of the time, I'm using this for car rigs. I don't do a lot of bag work these days, but it does come in handy for that. Or run, you know, there are those times when you just have to be sort of run and gun and portable. I also you'll see it in here, I have a couple channels of Lectrosonics. I have it here as well. I use the Electro now for communications, as well as if I have to do a plug-on like a handheld mic like this. But I don't have this fancy looking one. It's more just like a handheld reporter style. Comtech transmitter. This is also a volume knob for the Comtech feed, which is nice to have, I think. Transmitter for IFB for my crew, which I have two of on my main cart, on my bag rig. I just keep one. And a little speaker when I want to not be wearing my headphones. Yeah, pretty compact and light, and I can store it in a 1510 Pelican case, which is pretty compact. Bring it on an airplane if I had to, that sort of a thing.
Right on.
Other fun thing I brought just because, why not? I have a Zucca bag with a drum throne on it.
There you go. Yeah.
Which is quite comfortable. After having sat on many folding chairs, I can sit on that all day and not hate myself. Granted, I don't use it as much because one of the more recent things I did with this is I changed it to a standing setup. Previously, I was always sitting and feeling like all I'm doing is sitting all day. But the nice thing about that was there's also with this setup here, is there's no arms, no armrests.
On the chair.
Yeah, so it almost could you can get in and out. You just find yourself getting up and down more. But I still got to this point where I was ready to just be standing during the day. So I sit between takes, basically, and I stand while I'm working.
And then this is your playback speaker?
This is just, this is, I have a QSC K8 speakers that I usually use for playback, but this is just an additional one that I have, which is a Bose speaker. It's battery powered. And I actually tend to do my feeds wirelessly, which most of the time is fine. Every now and then it's like, uh-oh, you run the cable. But most of the time, and it's just easy because I have the transmitters here anyway. It's all sort of integrated into the cart, change a couple of settings, and you could pick this up and move it really easily. So same with my other QSC speakers. I have, on those I have the same 2-channel receivers on them. And then I have a subwoofer for Thumper and stuff like that. That I run hardline. You could almost get away with it wirelessly, but you really, because of the frequency and everything, you really kind of need it to be a hardline sort of a situation.
And then we have your follow card here.
Yeah, this is pretty recent, and I built this April, May. The big thing for me is my carts need to both exist on a truck if I'm on a job full time, but if I'm day playing, they need to fit into my van. So I fit these both in comfortably. They both roll in on their backs. You can see the wheels here at the handle, which actually light up when you spin them.
Oh, executive.
Yes. It's a fidget spinner, I guess, if you really need one. But they both, lay on their back, roll into the car pretty easily. And then, I don't know, talk about microphones or something like that.
People tend to like microphone
Yeah.
talk. Yeah.
So I carry a lot of different mics, a lot of Sheps, pretty much pairs of everything. Working in narrative, you're quite often double booming, and you just need those options, right? You need to have you don't need to, but I prefer to have matching mics when I'm doing a lot of this kind of stuff. I gravitate towards the 50, the MKH 50 quite a lot. I have the blues, the CMITs. I've got the short Sheps, the 41s. I think 3 of those. Actually, I have 3 50s. I haven't labeled my drawers yet, but this is the microphone drawer. Actually did this fun thing here with an old Sennheiser case.
Do you want me to hold the mic?
Where I fit 3 mics in it, right? So I've got 2 of those. So all of a sudden I've got 6 mics in a compact space. This is my Comtech drawer. We also have some of the Betso timecode boxes that I use. The basic mic mounts. The top drawer here is for battery charging. I've recently started using the R1Bs for IFBs for my crew. And I have a couple more transmitters. Mostly, these are the Zaxcom plug-ons. I mostly use these for plant mics. I also have a stereo cone. Every now and then I have to do a stereo recording, which I have a couple options for. So charging drawer, miscellaneous bins, that kind of fun stuff. Moving down, basically 2 junk drawers, as I like to call them. All the mic, mounting gacks and things like that. Tennis balls that are cut open so you can put them on the bottom of chairs. Anything that's, all the rest of the junk goes down there. Mm-hmm. I brought this out just for fun. This is also a recent acquisition, is the CMC, I have to look at the name because I already forget, 1KV. So these are the Colette series, but it also goes to a regular Zaxcom transmitter, which are great for all sorts of planting situations. They also have, I have all the accessories in my drawer down here, but they have like a magnetic mount sort of a deal. But you put a little Joe sticky, and you can just mount them all over the place. They're great for cars. I often will also throw them in rooms if I need some ambient sound. I want a little reverb, so I can just kind of drop these around the room, and they're great for that. You want to hold this again?
Oh, right on.
My mic, my lav kit.
Why am I not pointing the mic at you?
I don't know.
Just holding it.
I don't think you'd be a very good
Yeah,
boom
that
hog
was
now.
embarrassing.
Where I keep my lavs and lav accessories, and then straps, all the rest of the mounting gack, pouches, all that kind of stuff. And let's see, I carry, my general go-to for lav mics would be the DPA 6060. They're small, they sound great, but I also carry COS 11s, especially for if I have to bury a mic on someone. They just have a natural sort of high presence boost. So those are great for that, and they sound great anyway. And then I also carry B6s, Countryman B6s, especially if I have to expose a mic or buttonhole sort of a deal. I find they're pretty great for that. And a couple of other different mics in there as well.
Awesome. Well, again, there'll be a Q&A if anyone has any further questions. This is all super impressive, except for the fact that the drawers aren't labeled. I'm very disappointed. Just joking. Okay, if everybody wants to kind of swing around this way, we're going to go to Michelle Guasto.
Hi, everyone.
Hey. So, yeah,
Go on this side here.
we'll go over here. So, tell us what you got here.
Yeah, so here is my mixing cart. Of course, it's gone through a lot of revisions, as it always does. It's been gray, green. It's gotten taller. It also has some light up wheels to roll in the back of my car. So the whole purpose of this cart, I needed an upright cart, not a wide Magliner type cart, because I roll it in my SUV for sec units or day plane if I don't have, transpo or production to get all my gear for me. I guess I can go through some of the gear that's here. We have my Denicky GR2. That's a timecode generator, so that feeds a patch bay in the back for Lockett slates, and it feeds the Kantar, which is my recorder. We got some Comtech transmitters. I got the Electrosonics D2. I'm Electro gal. And then the Venue 2 and Marshall monitors here. And then we have the Kantar S, which is a control surface that only works with Aton. So the X3 is pretty awesome. I've had it for 5 years, just about 5 years, and it's a 24-track recorder. Pretty intuitive, easy to learn, easier than previous Aton recorders have been. And it, of course, sounds great. And there's limitless capabilities with routing, and there's playback and record features, which is pretty awesome. And yeah, then I have my follow cart here. So this was inspired, for those of you who know me, I started, or don't know me, I started up utilitying. So this was inspired from a lot of carts that I hated working with as a utility. So it has all of the things I could think of that I wouldn't have to have my utility run back to the truck and grab. So there's a carpet cart. I'm also pretty big stickler about footsteps and silencing cups and whatever makes noise. I like to get dialogue as clean as possible, probably more a stickler than a lot of other production sound mixers. But this cart can actually pop up onto this to transform into one big cart. And we can go through some of the drawers. So have a little workstation here. Boom mic drawers, everything is very labeled because I am a neat freak. We got an MKH60 that I don't use too often. This was my first mic that I bought. But it's kind of a backup. I mainly use the CMITs, MKH50s. And then I have some MK41s with the MK4 capsule, and then a mini CMIT. And then there are some plant mics. I have some 4097 little gooseneck mics that I'll sometimes use in car rigs, plant mics.
Those are DPAs?
Yeah, DPAs, yep. And then here's all the wireless. We have all the SMVs and SSMs, Electro. Got 4 HMs, and then I'm all about WYSICOM for the IFBs. I love these things. They're amazing and great range, sound great. And we have all the kind of wireless GAC. We've got the URSA straps and clips and condoms for protection of wet mics or wet transmitters, so very important to practice safe sound. And then, a bunch of URSA tape, all of the adhesives and GAC that you can think of. Heat shields, because there are quite a lot of actresses that don't like the hot body packs, so get little baby socks and put those on them too. Down here, this was like a custom drawer that has like wireless voice of God stuff in it. If, some directors like to sit back at Village and just bark commands sometimes on set, so we'll make that wireless. We got Some time code stuff in here. I guess this is kind of miscellaneous drawer. Dinkum arms for plant mics or, popping the antennas off. Those are on quick releases. And you can pop those off and remote antennas wherever you need to go. We got door cable safety. So this is just a cut garden hose. If we're running cables through doors, this just protects our expensive cables from getting cut. So that's a little hack I've done. Got pens, tools, important stuff. Batteries, more tools, little surface vacuum if you need to clean up. Got shock mounts, all sorts of different shock mounts. Every boom op seems to have their own preference with what type of shotgun or what type of shock mount they like to use. So got the gamut in there. And fuzzies, wind protection. I got the Zeppelins down here. I have a Sonella and some of the old school Rycote Zeppelins. And then here's my silencer drawer. So there's all sorts of, for the dolly, if you need to spray, for the squeak, spray some lemon pledge on there. We got the heel tips, foot foam, sometimes on glass or plates, we'll put little droplets of hot glue on the bottom of that. Cupboard things, whatever you can think of. Plastic silverware, if props allows us. We'll use this instead of the metal clanking silverware for background. So, jam that in there. A bar of soap for squeaky shoes. You can rub a hard bar of soap on the bottom of soles, and that helps prevent squeaks. And then here we got our kind of the wiring kit that has all the wires. I use primarily DPA 6060s. I used to use the COS 11s, but I think these sound better and are much easier to hide. And yeah, it's good if you ever have to go to the trailer, you can just take this whole thing and it has all the little mounts and tapes and anything you need for your wiring accessories.
So
yeah.
earlier, Michelle was showing me this, and I tried to be a smartass and made fun of her little rubber ducky here.
Oh.
And then she put me in my place and told me it has a very good purpose.
Yeah, so when the rubber ducky is on, our set PA knows we're ready to wire. So it has a little purpose. When it's off, we're not ready yet. So don't come to us because frequently we have a move, and then as soon as we get there and we're still plugging in, we're like, okay, you ready to wire? No, give us 5 more minutes. So this turns to this has been a shortcut for me in some shows.
Yeah, it's super smart. It's a great way to communicate
little
without
thing,
having people bothering you every 5 seconds. So why did you decide on the Kantar? Because that's quite an investment.
It was quite an investment. Yeah, I was a Zaxcom user before. I had some issues with them, so I was just looking for a recorder that I could just keep for many, many years. So after research, I just liked Kantar. I went with Aton over sound devices because of their routability, and I like how it's kind of, their routing is kind of like a grid. So I was used to that, the grid matrix like Zaxcom did, and it was solid. I mean, everyone gave such good feedback about it. So yeah, it was a big purchase. Very, very expensive, more than my car. But it's been great, and their customer service is awesome, and yeah, I haven't had issues. And also, what's really cool about the Kantar S is and the Kantar, these are magnetic faders. So dust and water will not get in there, and you can just pop them off if you want to, change the colors. But that's been really helpful because feel like a lot of my shows, I tend to be outside in the dust and wind and elements, and I don't need to get this cleaned every 3 months. So I can just take some water and wipe it off if I need to, if there's some schmutz on there. But it's nice that it's just airtight and sealed.
That was a real baller move when you
Yeah.
picked that up. I didn't know that happened.
Yeah, they're unique in that way. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, we'll go to our last table here. We have Charles Maines. Charles, what do you got here?
A lot of old school recording stuff. I do effects recording mainly for film, TV, video games, but mainly I do sound editorials, so it's not my full-time gig. Like Eric does a lot more recording than I do, certainly by like a huge margin. But I tend to get called for specialized stuff, mainly like military-oriented things, guns, explosions, tanks, that sort of stuff. So the kit kind of reflects that. I'm not sure where you'd like to start
Well,
regarding
let's
that.
start with the recorders over there.
Okay, great. Yeah, with the recorders, we've got a bunch of different stuff. Probably the first one I should bring up is this Fostex FR2. This is very old school. I think this was released around 2004, 2005. I actually got machine number 42 when it was released. I think I was probably one of the very first people in LA to be using it. And I think also one of the very first people to do high sample rate recording for effects. I immediately started working at 96K and found that it necessitated me upgrading my Pro Tools hardware to be able to play back the 96K files. So that was kind of an interesting thing. I still use it because the microphone preamps are really, really nice for explosions and guns and stuff. I actually have 3 of them. This is probably the lightest loadout I've ever done for anything with my recording gear, so it's kind of just a little sampling. So they're really great. I have timecode updates on the machines I use with theirs. Also, they have horrible battery systems. Which is to say the least. Some genius thought that running them on AA batteries was a good idea. They last maybe a half hour. So they've been all updated to use LEMO connections so that I can use actual proper power supplies with them. Next to it, I have a Sound Devices 744. Again, one of my total favorites for explosions and guns and stuff. The thing that's interesting about the 744 and 722 and 702 is that their preamp side is entirely analog versus the 788 and all of the subsequent machines. So like if you would run it 96K, you'd actually, on a 788, you'd lose your analog limiting because the limiter was actually post encode. With the earlier machines, basically the entire front end package was prior to the analog to digital conversion. So they sound really great. They take huge amounts of level. You can get really good sound from them. I tend to rent them when I need to do bigger sessions. Usually I'm running no fewer than 12 channels of it, so with 3 machines. I have a 302 mixer above it, which seems to pair very nicely with the analog inputs that are built into it. So I can basically just slap those onto the inputs 3 and 4 and have a relatively well unified set of channels.
Because the 744 only has 2 internal preamps, right?
Right, yeah.
So it's 4 channels, but only 2 preamps.
Correct.
So you need to have the second device there, yeah.
Right, and I've done some ambisonic recording, and in those cases, I've used the 442 preamp across all of the inputs. So, this thing, I'm sure everybody knows these. They are literally built like tanks. We could run over them with anybody's car, and you'd never know it. Next to it, I have my 32-bit recorders, which are the Zoom machines. This is the F3, I think, has been talked about a number of times here. These are great drop rigs. They sound great. 32-bit floating point is insanely awesome to work with because you just don't have to worry about so much of the issues that you would have in a linear world. The F8N Pro basically is 8 channels of it, or 10 channels of it. You have a mixed stereo pair as well as 8 inputs, and you can have a ungodly amount of storage attached to them for relatively very little money. And they run on, one of the current NP batteries. I can run all day on one battery with it, which is really, really convenient. The last machines I have here are some little portables. This is the M10 Sony, which I use as a drop rig. A lot of the video game companies around the time of the first Battlefield release became very attracted to kind of the lo-fi, kind of almost video cassette sounding actuality sound for guns and explosions. So, it's like you'd see like almost everybody demanding like these little handheld dictaphones, basically. And they work great. I mean, they actually sound pretty good, and you can drop them any place, and they'll run for hours on little, AAA or AA batteries. So, these were kind of like, more market demand. It's like the people who were hiring me said, yeah, we'd really like to get that kind of a thing happening. So you get the machines they ask for. On the mics side, I brought a few mics. I have a general rule, and one which anybody who might want to hire me, I always tell any of you who are my friends or colleagues, never ever loan me a mic, ever, especially like a Schoeps or something that you actually care about, because I look at all of my microphones as being expendables. So especially with, again, given the content that I tend to do, I just can't get too attached to them. That being said, the stuff that I do own, I generally, select very specifically for utility and for sound quality. The middle mic in the Zeppelin is a Sennheiser 416, which is, I call it the sound of Hollywood. Basically it works always. It always sounds good in the stuff I record, and I can really, really subject it to situations that other mics will really not respond well to. On the right of that, I've got my first, probably proper stereo microphone I purchased, which was a Sanken CSS5. Again, has a very specific sound quality, which the people who hire me tend to like. It's very crunchy and very mid-rangey. It sounds, if you will, very violent. A little bit like a stereo version of the 416 in some ways. It's also selectable pattern-wise, so it can function as a short shotgun, a kind of XY stereo output, and then what Sanken derives as a kind of pseudo 110-degree spread ORTF. And then the microphone in the left Zeppelin, that is one of my new favorites, which actually came about from discussions with Frank Bree, who is also a recordist who does a lot of guns and stuff. It's the Audio-Technica 4029. So it is another short shotgun, but it is a unified MS stereo or decoded output microphone. Has a great sound, extremely durable. Actually, all three of those mics take weather conditions without any complaint whatsoever. I can leave them out in the rain for 3 hours and you'd never know it. And the last mic is the Crown SAS there, which is a little old school nowadays. It's a stereo PZM mic, which, I mean, we do have various boundaries that I think Schoeps does the BLM. Oh, you can take it off. There's a bunch of different boundary microphones that Schoeps, the BLM. I think there's some other ones out there. That was designed as sort of like a pseudo binaural stereo contraption, but it sounds really good on guns and stuff like that. It gives almost the quality of sound that we used to kind of really like to get from the Nagra and Schoeps combos back when Eric was doing recordings on analog. So it tends to deliver a very consistent outcome, and it's one where basically, I would, communicate with whoever's hiring me as to what sort of a sound they were looking for, and if that sound might be in the kind of parameters that would work for them.
So you were telling me earlier about a microphone that you were hoping to bring, but you couldn't, that has a bullet hole in the microphone?
Yes, it goes back to never wanting me a mic ever. On one of my first shows doing gun recording, which was the film Starship Troopers, we did a impact session, and I had a Sennheiser 409 dynamic mic that we had put downrange in an impact area, and it ended up getting an errant 9mm round going through the lower quarter of the actual mic. And the mic still works. So, I mean, you know, it's like, as a testimony to Sennheiser engineering, they're pretty sturdy. It looks great. I wish I could have brought it today, but it didn't sound very interesting. So that was kind of a shame.
That's awesome. So let's open up the floor to Q&A. Does anybody have any questions for any of our cart owners here today? Go ahead. Here, I'll come to you here.
If you're using the CMIT for outdoors, do you pair it with another Sheps if you're doing indoor, like a Mini or a CMC 641, or do you not mind mixing between brands?
Truth be told, outside, I do use the CMIT outside. I also use the Sanken CS3E quite a lot as like my main boom mic outdoors. I'm not too worried about indoors versus outdoors, to be honest. The CMIT, the reason to use the CMIT outside is it does really well with, it does better with reflections, I think, than the Sanken does. The Sanken, though, has like no rear pickup at all. It's very directional. But I also find it, provided whoever's swinging it, you know, hopefully they know what they're doing, but the off-axis doesn't color like the 416 does, which is one reason why I never owned a 416, is I never had access to good boom ops when I started. And as soon as you get off axis on that 416, it kind of has a color to the sound that I just wasn't into. But, you know, it really kind of depends. I mean, the 50 is my go-to for a lot of reasons, but also because it deals with reflections really well, I find. If I'm ever have actors sitting at a table or they're in a room that's like super echoey, the 50 is usually my go-to. But yeah, I don't know if that answers all of your question. Or...
arguments with like, my other sound mixer friends about using, if I'm using a Sheps outdoor, a CMIT, that I should use a CMC 641 indoor or a Mini CMIT, and then if I'm using a 50 indoor, to use the 416 outside.
I could see an argument for that. I don't know, honestly.
That's my setup, pretty much. The
Sure.
CMIT outside and then the MKH50 inside.
Sure. I mean, look, there's a mixer I know back in New York who he has 416s and he has 41s, and that's it. Like, that's all he uses. He doesn't even have a 50. He doesn't have CMITs, and he works on major TV shows. You know, I find that you know, I think it's more about knowing what the tools you have do and how they sound versus like, well, this is going to be this exactly, or because it's that. You know, but I think everyone has their preferences too. So.
In the interest of us all getting warm food, I think we're going to, if you have any questions for anybody, just go find them during lunch and such and ask questions, and we're going to wrap it up here so we can all go get some good grub. So thank you to all of the people who presented today. That was really fun. And we'll see you after lunch in the next room for our final panel. Thanks a lot, everybody.